You are born in the year 100 BCE, in the month of July, into the ancient city of Roma, sprawling, restless, and rising republic surrounded by conflict, ambition, and constant change. The world outside your mother's arms is filled with noise. The clang of hammers shaping bronze, the barking of merchants, the shouting of magistrates. Your family, the Uli, is old, patrician, claiming divine ancestry from Venus herself. But your branch of the family isn't rich anymore. Your father, Gaius Julius Caesar, is a praetor, a man of standing, but not one of the great power brokers of the time. And your mother, Aurelia, is strong and noble, clever and fiercely proud. She will become one of the most influential figures in your early life. The republic you are born into is already strained. Political rivalries are growing fiercer. Rome is expanding, conquering foreign lands. But with that expansion comes inequality, corruption, and the erosion of the traditional values that once held the city together. The Senate is full of old men clinging to ancient power, while populist leaders begin to rise on the tide of the common people's anger. Your youth is shaped by these currents. When you're about 6 or 7, a man named Gaius Marius, your uncle by marriage, is one of the most powerful generals in Rome. He is a new man, not born into the old patrician lines, but raised by his own talent. He leads the populace, those who claim to represent the common people. He reforms the army, allowing the landless poor to join, changing the nature of Roman power forever. You see firsthand what it means to challenge tradition, and how the people can lift a man into near royalty or tear him down. Then comes Sulla. He's the opposite of Marius, champion of the Senate and the conservative aristocracy. When the two collide, Rome descends into chaos. Sulla marches on the city with his legions. Streets run red with blood. Prescriptions lists of enemies of the state are nailed up in the forum. Names on the lists are hunted down, their properties seized, their families destroyed. You are barely a teenager when Sulla seizes power as dictator. Marius dies. The Republic is wounded. You live through these purges, watching as the balance between power and law fractures. At 16, your father dies suddenly. You're now the head of the family. In that same year, you are ordered by Sulla to divorce your wife, Cornelia, the daughter of a powerful populist. You refuse. It is an act of defiance that nearly gets you killed. Stripped of your priesthood and inheritance, you flee Rome and go into hiding in the countryside. For days you dodge assassins, change disguises, rely on the kindness of allies. Eventually, through the intervention of influential friends of your mother's family, Sulla relents begrudgingly, and you're allowed to return. But the message is clear. Rome is not safe for men of conviction, hungry, unprotected, and forced to start over. You decide to leave the city and join the army in Asia. It is in these distant provinces, among foreign kings and endless dust and sweat, that you begin to become the man you are meant to be. You serve with distinction, display courage, and in one legendary moment, When captured by Cilician pirates, you turn the tables on them entirely. They hold you for ransom, mocking you, unaware of the fire that burns in you. You laugh with them, tell them you'll have them crucified once you're free. They think it's a joke. After you're ransomed, you raise a fleet, hunt them down, and make good on your word, though in an act of mercy, you order their throats cut before the nails are driven in. You return to Rome with a scent of salt, and war still on your cloak. The city is different, now always shifting, but still boiling with faction and fear. You begin to climb the cursus honorum, the political ladder of Rome. You know it's rigged, full of old families with deeper pockets and longer reach, but you charm them. You charm everyone. You dress impeccably, speak with clarity and emotion, and every time you open your mouth in court, you move the hearts of the people. They say you speak with the fire of Marius and the elegance of Cicero, but behind the smiles and oratory you see the rot. The Senna is paralyzed by ego. The poor starve in the streets. Veterans of Rome's great wars return home with nothing. You know this is your moment, your path. You choose the side of the populares. You rise, step by step. Quaestor id Pontifex Maximus, the high priest of Rome, a position of immense influence, which you win not with wealth, but with borrowed money and enormous risk. You're young, but already people whisper, this one is dangerous, brilliant, ambitious. You become praetor, then governor of Hispania, Ulteria, where you crush rebellions, stabilize the region, and earn the loyalty of hardened troops. You return, be richer, more powerful, but also in debt, so much debt. The kind of debt that makes even the Senate nervous. But you've planned for this. Perform a secret alliance with two of the most powerful men in Rome, Pompey the Great, the famed general who conquered the East, and Crassus, the richest man in the Republic, who made his fortune buying up burning buildings and owning fire brigades. The three of you form what will later be called the First Triumvirate. You divide the Republic like a carcass. Each gets a slice, and in return you are elected consul. As consul, you do not waste time. You pass laws for land reform, for the poor, for veterans, for debt relief. You break the traditions of the Senate with every step. They shout at you, threaten you, call you a tyrant, but the people adore you. You marry your daughter Julia to Pompey to seal the bond. And when your year is up, you secure a 5-year governorship over Gaul. That this is where your legend is truly forged. It is a brutal, vast, unruly land, a patchwork of tribes, each fiercely proud, constantly at war. The Senate expects you to hold the borders, maybe earn some small glory. Instead, you conquer it all. You lead legions across rivers, through forests, up mountains, into the jaws of death. You fight not just warriors, but frost, starvation, rebellion. You write detailed accounts of your campaigns clear, gripping, always casting you in the best. Lightened, send them back to Rome. The people read them like poems. You are becoming a myth. For 8 years, you make war. Your soldiers would follow you into hell. They call you Imperator. You build bridges across impossible rivers. You siege fortified cities in the snow. You crush rebellions and destroy entire armies. You cross into Britain, the edge of the known world. By the time you're done, 1,000,000 Gauls are dead or enslaved. Rome is richer. You are richer. Your fame has eclipsed Pompey's, but while you are winning glory, the triumvirate is unraveling. Crassus dies in the east, foolishly trying to gain his own military greatness in Parthia. Julia dies in childbirth. With her gone, your bond with Pompey begins to decay. He sides with the Senate, now terrified of your power. You demand to return to Rome and run for consul again legally, but with your army intact, they order you to disband and return as a private citizen. You know what that means. Trial, exile, ruin. You cannot allow it. You stand at the banks of the Rubicon, the river that marks the boundary of your province. To cross it with an army is treason. You hesitate only for a moment, then you speak. Alia iacta, iste die is cast. You march on Rome. The city panics. Pompey flees with the Senate. No one dares face you. You take the city without bloodshed, then pursue your enemies across the Republic. War erupts again. This is civil war now. Roman against Roman, legion against legion. The pain of it is enormous. Families are torn apart. Provinces burn. But you are relentless. You chase Pompey to Greece. You defeat him at Pharsalus, though he has the larger army. Pompey flees to Egypt, hoping for sanctuary, but they kill him. They cut off his head and present it to you. You weep. You go to Egypt yourself. There you meet Cleopatra, the young queen, brilliant, calculating, enchanting. You help her seize her throne in a war of palace intrigue and siege. You stay with her longer than anyone expects. A son is born Caesarean, but Rome still calls. You return. Mop up resistance in Africa and Spain, at Thapstus, at Munda. One by one, the old republicans fall. Cato the younger, unbending in principle, chooses suicide over your pardon. You are now the most powerful man in the Roman world, dictator in name, dictator for 10 years, then for life, and now, in peacetime, your true dreams begin to take shape. But we're just getting started. You return to Rome not as a general, not as a consul, not even as a revolutionary, but as something new, something no Roman has been for centuries. You hold the title Dictator Perpetuoed Dictator for life. No one alive dares rival your power. You control the legions, the treasury, the courts, the calendar. You've crushed all enemies in the field, silenced the Senate through awe and fear, and turned the angry Roman mob into your loyal base. But victory, you quickly learn, brings by its own kind of peril. The city is broken beneath its grandeur. Statues of gods stand tall, but aqueducts crumble. The old families still whisper of the Republic, but the people don't care for the Senate anymore. They care about bread, about land, about dignity, And you, above all, understand this. You walked through their filth-covered alleys, seen the bruises on beggars' feet, smelled the stench of slums. That memory has never left you, and now that you rule, you begin to reshape Rome, not just to reflect your vision of power, but your vision of what Rome could be. You reform the grain dole, so it no longer bankrupts the treasury. You found colonies abroad to resettle the poor and veterans Carthage, Corinth, lands in Gaul and Hispania. You increase the number of senators to dilute the power of the old guard. You overhaul the calendar itself, aligning it with the Julian calendar. You commission grand construction projects, basilicas, libraries, roads, temples. You rebuild Rome in marble and sunlight, just as you once said you would. But through it all, your actions strike the Senate like hammer blows. They see their own power slipping away death by 1,000 decrees. You, a single man, have done more in a year than they had in decades. Some admire you, many fear you. You accept honors they never thought they'd have to grant. Your image on coins while you still breathe. A golden throne in the Senate. The month of your birth renamed after you, Julius. When you wear the purple cloak of the kings of old. When you let the people hail you with the title Rex, even briefly. The whispers grow louder. The word king is poison in Rome. And so, while you rule, there is a sickness in the air, subtle, unseen, but everywhere. Some of your oldest allies become cold and distant. Senators begin to meet behind closed doors, voices hushed, eyes watching for spies. They speak of liberty, of the old days, of Brutus, Marcus, Junius, Brutus once, your enemies, son, now your protege. You saw promise in him, pardoned him, raised him up, called him your own. But his lineage weighs heavily. His ancestors were kingslayers, defenders of the Republic. The blood in his veins is full of expectation, and the men whispering in his ears know how to stir it. Still, you move forward. You plan a grand Campaignan invasion of Parthia. You will do what Crassus could not, avenge his death, reclaim the lost standard, expand the eastern borders of Rome. You prepare the legions. You appoint governors. You dream of reshaping the world from the Nile to the Indus. You believe truly that this is your destiny. But the knives are already being sharpened. It is the Ides of March 15th, 44 BCE wake. Feeling uneasy, your wife, Calpurnia, begs you not to go to the Senate that day. She's had terrible dreams, visions of your death, omens, blood on your statue. Even the augurs warn you of bad signs, but you laugh it off. You've lived through so many dangers, so many betrayals. What's another warning in a city built on fear? You go anyway. You enter the theater of Pompey, where the Senate is meeting. The room is large, its shadows long. As you take your seat, they gather around you not all at once, but subtly, like lions circling a stag. You know many of their faces. You've fought beside some, dined with others, pardoned nearly all. Then the first blow comes. It's not fatal. It's a jab to the shoulder. Confusion flashes across your face. Then another. Then another. You twist, try to rise, but more blades flash from togas. Blood splashes across marble. You stumble. They're all over you now. One cuts your thigh, another strikes your neck. You see Cassius, then Brutus. You freeze. You don't speak. Or maybe you do. Maybe it's a whisper, E.T. to Brute. Or maybe not. It doesn't matter. The moment is already eternal. You pull your toga over your face so no one can see your expression as you fall. Not as a king, nor a tyrant, but a man, mortal, bleeding, alone. You die at the feet of Pompey's statue. Your rival's likeness, soaked in your blood. 23. Wounds, dot, and silence. The senators think they've saved the Republic, that they've killed a tyrant, not a savior. They rush from the scene, shouting treed freedom. But the streets don't erupt in joy. The people mourn. Your body lies in state, wounds still open. Mark Antony, your loyal general and consul, reads your will aloud. You have left money for every citizen. You have left gardens, public, spaces, lands, gifts. The crowd howls with grief, and then rage. Your funeral becomes a riot. Your body is burned in the forum against tradition. A makeshift pyre is built from benches and old wood. People toss in their cloaks, their tears, their fury. Rome catches fire not just in flame, but in soul. The republic you died in begins to die with you. Your assassins are hunted, scattered, killed, or driven into exile. Mark Antony rises, but not for long. For in your shadow, another figure is rising, a boy barely grown. Your great-nephew, adopted, son Gaius Octavius. He becomes Augustus, the first emperor. The republic ends. An empire is born, and you, Julius Caesar, become more than a man. You become a legend, a god. But the truth beneath the marble is harder. You lived in a time of chaos and ambition, where violence ruled and power was bought with blood. You made impossible choices. You loved Rome, but reshaped it with force. You were brilliant, cruel, generous, relentless. You carried the Republic to its final breath, gave birth to something new. Let's walk through every battle, every turning point, every night when your body ached from frost and your men wept around dying campfires. Let's open your letters, yes, your own words, and trace what you feared, what you hid, what you longed for. Let's see your world not just in marble and gold, but in mud, blood, and silence. Let's begin again, this time in Goldot. It's 58 B.C. You are 42 years old. Consulship behind you, debt behind you, alliances holding for now. The Senate has granted you a 5-year proconsulship over Cisalpine Gaul, northern Italy, and Illyricum, and through some clever political maneuvering, Transalpine Gaul, southern France, has been added. It is a plum position, yes, but unstable. Rome's grip on Gaul is partial and tenuous, and across the northern border, beyond the rivers and forests, The rest of Gaul breathes freely, wild and fractious. Tribes rule themselves. They war against one another, compete for dominance, harbor old rivalries. You know that conflict breeds opportunity. A storm is already brewing. The Helvetii, a massive Gallic tribe from what is now Switzerland, are on the move. 400,000 men, women, and children with wagons, carts, oxen. They're trying to migrate west into new lands. They are not Rome's direct enemy, but their movement threatens the balance of power in Gaul. If they settle, others may rise. If others rise, Rome loses control. You march north. Your legions are green raw recruits and veterans cobbled together. Supplies are short. Roads are poor. Gaul is thick with forests, bogs, stone hills that bleed when it rains. But you move fast. You cut off the Helvetii at the Rhine. They plead for passage. You delay, stall, build a wall, literally a massive barricade, stretching miles to block them. When they find another way around, you pursue. You catch them at the river Seine. They're still crossing, families midstream, carts struggling in the mud. Bayous strike with sudden, merciless force. Thousands fall. The remaining tribesmen regroup and keep moving. You pursue them for weeks through hills and rivers. They're faster, know the terrain. But you press on, and at last you face them at Brecht. This is your first true test. The Helvetii have positioned themselves well atop a ridge, bare, battle-hardened, fighting not just for land, but for their families, their survival. Your men are tired, hungry. Many have never seen war. You give a rousing speech. You walk the line, speaking softly, personally. They see your face. You lead from the front. The battle is brutal. Shield smashes into shield. Spears pierce lungs. Brew you hold the center, and send your cavalry around the flanks. The Helvetii break. You pursue them again for days until they surrender. Of the 400,000 who began the migration, only about a quarter survive. You force the remnants to return to their homeland. Rome breathes easier, but you are only beginning. Other tribes see what you've done, and some appeal to you for protection, even alliance. Among them are the Aedui, a Roman ally, and their neighbors, the Sequennes. But behind these appeals lies a greater threat, the Germanic warlord Ariovestus. He is no tribal chieftain. He is a king, crowned by the will of violence. He commands tens of thousands of German warriors tall, ferocious, foreign. His presence in Gaul threatens everything. He sneers at Roman warnings. He sees your intervention as weakness. You march toward him, crossing the Rhine frontier. Morale is low. The Senate gives you no reinforcements. Some of your own officers fear, begerments, and grumble about mutiny. You speak to your men again this time, not as a general, but as a fellow soldier. You tell them if they're afraid, you'll go alone, with just your personal guard. The men erupt in cheers. Your authority is absolute. At Vosges, you meet Ariovistus. His cavalry is overwhelming. His lines are longer, but you strike with precision. You flank him. You disorient him. You break him. The Germans flee back over the Rhine. The danger, for now, is gone. You return to camp. You write dry reports, but stories, artfully crafted, meant for the Roman reader. You write in the third person. You describe not just battles, but the terrain, the customs of the tribes, their governance, their festivals. You turn war into literature, but Gaul is not pacified. Next comes the campaign against the Belgae in the north. Unlike the Gauls you've met before, the Belgae are fierce and unified. They gather in the tens of thousands. The nervy among them are the most terrifying, silent, stoic, willing to die to the last man. You build bridges. You cross rivers that should be impassable. At the river Sambra, your forces are ambushed mid-construction. It is chaos to confusion. For a moment, you think it's over, but your men recover, rally. You leap into the fight yourself. The nervy resist until nearly all of them are dead. Their civilization is broken in a single afternoon. Every battle costs you. Men die by the hundreds. The roads are mud. Disease spreads. The Gauls poison wells, burn their own food stores, scatter like smoke into the woods. And yet you press on. Every year, new revolts. Every year, new enemies. You spend winters not in Rome, but in Gaul with your men. You share their hardships, sweat tents, frostbite, vermin. You walk among them as they cook, bleed, laugh. You pay them out of your own purse. They adore you, but Gaul is vast, and its people proud. The real test comes in 52 BCE. His name is Vercingetorix. He is young, charismatic, a noble of the Arverni tribe. He unites the Gallic tribes like none before him. He wages a scorched hearth campaign, denying you food, shelter, allies. Your supply lines are stretched. For the first time, you are truly threatened. You engage in skirmishes. You win. You chase. Tim. He slips away. At last, he makes his stand at a fortress city called Alesia, atop a high hill, surrounded by rivers and walls. He believes he is untouchable. You do something unthinkable. You lay siege, and then you build a second wall, encircling your own army, to protect from outside reinforcements. It is a masterpiece of engineering. You are trapped between two enemies, Vercingetorix inside Alesia, and a massive Gallic relief army outside, hundreds of thousands strong. For weeks, the siege wears on. Your men starve. The Gallic relief force attacks again and again. On one day, you are nearly broken. You personally rally the legions. You ride to the weakest point. The fight is hand to hand, hour after hour, dirt and blood and screaming. You win. Vercingetorix surrenders. He rides out on horseback, lays his weapons at your feet. You take him prisoner. He will live in chains for 6 years, paraded in your triumph, then strangled in a cell. Gaul is yours. 9 years, countless battles, 1 million dead, cities burned. tribes broken, cultures lost. And all the while, back in Rome, your enemies grow restless. They say you've become too powerful. They say you are a threat to the Republic. You know what's coming. You leave Gaul behind, not as a general retiring from war, but as a storm rolling south toward home. You were a relentless communicator. You sent letters constantly across provinces, pour across wars, across nights interrupted by wind and torches. You wanted to shape your own image, guide events even when your hand could not be present. In Gaul, you wrote detailed commentary de bello Gallico, not just as reports, but as propaganda-crafted narratives, written in the third person, as if you were observing yourself from a divine distance. But in your private letters, the voice changes to Cicero. You were, at times, deferential, playful, sometimes quietly mocking. You recognized his brilliance, but also his vanity. You tried to win him, never crush him. In one letter, you say, "I have always preferred to win by strategy than by slaughter, by forgiveness rather than by force." It sounds noble, and sometimes it was. You pardoned your enemies again and again, but it also served your purpose. Mercy builds loyalty. It also leaves no martyrs. You wrote to your legates with military precision. To Labianus, your trusted second in Gaulby, for he betrayed you and joined Pompey, wrote often about movement, morale, winter quarters, construction of forts, grain supplies. You cared deeply about discipline, but you also knew when to bend it. You punished mutiny, but forgave exhaustion. You walked among your men. You let them see you wet, cold, bleeding. They loved you for it. You even wrote love letters to Servilia, the mother of Brutus, with whom you had a long and tender affair. You were softer. Your relationship with her was more than political, though it served political ends. Some rumors even whispered that Brutus was your son, though the timelines don't quite match. But you did show him an affection that puzzled others. Your affairs were many. It's part of your reputation. In the East, you had a scandalous affair with Nick, king of Bithynia at least, so your enemies claimed. Whether true or slander, the joke followed you for decades. In Rome, you were known for seducing wives of Senator Servilia, Pompey, your second wife, and even possibly the wives of your political enemies. They called you every woman's husband and every man's wife. You didn't deny it. And then, dowers Cleopatra. You met her in 48 BCE, in Alexandria, after chasing Pompey across the Mediterranean. You found her rolled into a carpet, literally smuggled into your palace to beg for your support in Egypt's civil war. She was just 21. You were 51. But her mind, her charm, her bearing, they stunned you. She spoke many languages, governed with steel and silk. You stayed in Egypt for months longer than was politically wise. You fathered a son, serene. Some said you believed he might one day rule with you, but you knew Rome would never accept a queen, especially not a foreign one. You brought Cleopatra to Rome. She stayed in your villa outside the city. Senators were scandalized. You built a golden statue of her in the temple of Venus Genetrix, your divine ancestor. The people whispered, the patricians scowled, but the commoners, many admired her. She represented something larger: mystery, empire, destiny. You didn't care about tradition anymore. You were reshaping Rome, not just in law, but in myth. And you were always sick. You had the falling sickness, what we call epilepsy today. You collapsed in the field more than once. You sometimes blacked out, foamed at the mouth. Some said it was divine punishment. Others said it proved you were touched by the gods. You hid it when you could, but your body betrayed you more and more as you aged. You had dizzy spells, migraines, insomnia. You traveled with litters and physicians. In battle, you sometimes dismounted just to stay conscious, walking rather than riding, refusing to let your men see weakness. Your rituals were endless. You consulted augurs before every campaign. You sacrificed animals, read entrails. You believed in omens. You changed travel plans if the birds didn't fly right. You avoided certain days entirely. The gods to you were not myths. They were part of strategy. You invoked Venus, Mars, Jupiter with calculation, but also a kind of faith. You believed in fate, and you believed it favored the bold. But at night, alone in your chambers, what haunted you most wasn't the gods. It was time. You feared growing old before you had reshaped the world. You once said, I would rather be the first man in a barbarian village than the second man in Rome. You wanted everything, not just power, but permanence. Not just the command of legions, but the command of memory. And that is why you pushed. Even when Rome was afraid. Even when friends begged you to slow down. Even when the Senate fawned in public, but sharpened knives in private. You couldn't stop. You had seen what it meant to be powerless. When Sulla hunted you in your youth, when you fled through swamps, when pirates mocked your ransom, you would never be powerless again. That's why you crossed the Rubicon. That's why you refused to disband your army. That's why, even after conquering Gaul, you didn't return humbly. Because you were already something more than a Roman. You were becoming a force, and that force frightened them. It is now March of 44 BCE. You are in Rome. The city is dust and stone, and voices, many of them nervous, all of them watching you. You have returned from war, from the eastern provinces, from Egypt and Asia and Africa. You are dictator perpetual, but the city around you still wears the old mask of the Republic. The temples still open to the gods of the state. The senators still gather and debate in the Curia. The lictors still carry their fasces. But everyone knows Rome is yours now. Your power is unmatched, but it isn't simple. It's layered like the Forum itself. You are consul. You are dictator. You are Pontifex Maximus. You are imperator. You are father of the nation, Potter Potrier. You've been granted the right to wear the laurel wreath always. Your statue stands among the gods. Your name is a chant on every street. You are still mortal, but barely. And yet, the closer you rise to the divines, the more fragile the world beneath you becomes. March 10th, 44 BC. You rise early. You don't sleep much anymore. The night is often broken by scribes arriving with scrolls, messengers with warnings. Your villa is busy before dawn, slaves moving silently, guards stationed, torches flickering. You sit with scrolls, correspondence, reports from the provinces. The Senate has declared new honors for you again. A temple, a month named Julius, a throne in the Curia, a crown to wear on feast days. But you've begun to see the edges of discomfort. Some honors feel like mockery. Some are proposed by enemies who smile too much. Some are passed because people fear what happens if they don't pass them. At a festival that day, someone offers you a crown again. The people cheer half-heartedly. The Senate sits still. You take it. You set it aside. You're testing the waters, but you know the tide is turning. Your enemies are moving, but slowly. You see it in their eyes. Cassius no longer speaks with the old warmth. Brutus is more formal. Some senators bow too low. Others won't meet your eyes. You say nothing. March 11th, through dine with friends. You laugh. You make plans. You speak of Parthia. You still dream of going east, conquering where Crassus failed, crossing the Euphrates, maybe even the Indus. You want one more grand war, one last reshaping of the map. Antony is at your side, loyal, loud, brutal. He suspects the mood in the Senate. He warns you again. Watch them. They're sharpening something behind those smiles. You nod, but you've survived worse. You've survived Sulla, pirates, betrayal, exile, mutiny. These old men with ink-stained fingers. You've already beaten them. Still, you sleep uneasily. March 12th, there's a message from a seer, Spirina. He speaks in riddles, like they always do. But one thing is clear. Beware the Ides of March. You scoff, but it stays with you. Not because you believe in fate, not entirely, but because part of you does. You were always surrounded by omens, falling stars during your birth, horses refusing to cross bridges before key battles, flames that flickered the wrong way. And now this, the Ides, March 15th. 3 days. You schedule a Senate meeting for that day. It will be held not in the traditional Curia, which is under repairs, but in the theater of Pompey, in the temporary Senate Hall at its base. The irony of it doesn't escape you. Your greatest rival, dead years ago, still casting a shadow. That night you write letters, dictate orders, plan campaigns. March 13th, the conspirators meet in secret. Cassius, Brutus, Decimus, Casca, Trebonius, Cinna, around 60 of them. Some are bitter over lost status. Some are sincere believers in the Republic. Some are opportunists. Some, like Brutus, are both. They argue about details. Should they kill Antony too? Should they strike at the Senate meeting or ambush you in the streets? They settle on the Ides at the theater. In daylight, a symbolic killing. Public, surgical. The death of tyranny under the statue of Pompey. They draw lots for who will strike first. Casca is chosen. March 14th to attend a ceremony. You speak before the crowds. You seem calm, confident, maybe tired. You feel something in your body, a pressure, a thickness in your head. The illness returns. Your physicians advise rest. That evening, Calpurnia dreams of your death. She wakes. You, shaken. She sees your statue bleeding. She sees you in the forum, fallen. She begs you don't go to the Senate tomorrow. You agree, for her sake. You say you'll send Antony in your place. The conspirators panic. Decimus comes to your villa, a man you trust. He mocks the dream. He mocks the augurs. He says people will say you're afraid, that it will be seen as weakness. He plays on your pride. He plays on your fear of seeming afraid. He tells you the Senate has honors to grant. He lies. You pause, and then you nod. You'll go March 15th, the Ides, the morning is clear. Light cuts across the Tiber like a blade. You dress simply in a white toga with a red stripe. You hesitate, bat the door. One of the augurs sacrifices an animal and says the omens are bad. The liver is malformed. You shrug it off. You've faced omens your entire life. You mount your litter. You're carried through the streets. People cheer. Children run alongside. You wave, but your eyes are elsewhere. At the Senate, men are already in place. Antony tries to reach you. He's delayed by Trebonius, pulled aside just long enough. You enter the theater of Pompey. The room is large, echoing. The marble is cold. The Senate rises. 60 men in togas. You walk to your seat, Decimus at your side, Brutus not far behind. Casca moves behind you. You sit, and then it begins. C-A-S-C-A strikes first clumsy, a gash to the neck. You stand, shocked. You turn. More blades. Steel flashes. Pain blooms. Blood hits your robe. You fight for a moment, call out, push back. Then you see Brutus. You stop. You pull your toga over your head. You let yourself fall. The blades come again and again. 23 wounds. Only one is fatal. You die in silence. You die at the base of Pompey's statue. The senators flee. The city freezes. Then it explodes. Antony seizes your will. He reads it aloud. You left money for every citizen. You left land. You left gardens. You left love. The crowd weeps. Then it roars. They build a pyre in the forum. They burn your body there, not in the sacred field of Mars, but in the heart of the city. They throw benches, wood, clothes onto the fire. They cry out your name. They hunt the conspirators. Rome becomes flame. Your death did not restore the Republic. It destroyed it. Brutus and Cassius flee. Civil war erupts. Antony rises then falls. And from the ashes, your heir, Octavian, seizes power. He becomes Augustus, the first emperor. The Republic becomes empire. You become a god. Your temple is raised. Your name becomes a title, Caesar. Every ruler to follow Tsar. Kaiser carries your shadow. Your face becomes immortal. Your words, your battles, your life written. rewritten, worshipped, feared. But what remains beneath the myth? A man, tired, brilliant, ruthless, compassionate, terrifying, beautiful, tragic. You were born into a broken world and refused to let it break you. You were Julius Caesar. Your commentaries, the Gallic Wars, weren't dry dispatches. They were literature. You shaped them in the third person, casting yourself almost as hero and narrator, turning battle reports into epics. Yet your private letters shift the voice, strategic, human, anxious. To Cicero, you write with a mix of respect and persuasion, trying to keep an ally close. In correspondence to your lieutenant Lebionus, exact orders on winter camp locations, fortifications, supply lines down to the grain shipments and construction, goals, and the softer notes. Your affection toward Servilia, mother of Brutus, surfaces in tone, if not text, more soft, more personal, say ancient sources. This intimacy spilled rumorsome, even whispered. Brutus might be your son, though timelines don't align. Affairs and intrigue. Your reputation with women was legendary. Everyone and every enemy knew you seduced wives of senators and nobles, Pompey's, Servilia, among others. You once joked you were every woman's husband, every man's wife. This wasn't just scandal, it was power. In Egypt, your romance with Cleopatra was revolutionary. She smuggled herself to you, wrapped in a carpet. You stayed in Alexandria, months longer than politics advised. A son was born Caesarean. You allowed her to rule with your support. He was your only biological child, even while Rome looked on uneasily. Reforms and political transformation back in Rome. You didn't just rule, you restructured. You passed the Lex Julia Agraria 59 BCE, seized public land, redistributed to the poor and Pompey's veterans, forcing the Senate to swear an oath or be excluded. You enacted the Lex Julia de Repetundus, anti-corruption laws for governors, be enforcing accountability, narrowing extortion. You imposed the Lex Vitinia 59 BCE, granting yourself a 5-year governorship over Cisalpine and Transalpine, Gaul with legions and choice over legatia, protection from prosecution. Later, as dictator, you extended magistrate powers, restructured the Senate, boosted membership to approximately 900, controlled elections, gave yourself tribunician power, veto, sacrosanctity, and assumed censorship rights under a new title law, reshaping Rome's constitution. You reformed the calendar, the Julian calendar, and pushed citizenship out to Gaulish and Spanish communities. Military mastery and the Gallia campaigns were textbook models of strategy and brutality. You fought Ariovistus beyond the Rhine to protect Aedui allies. Despite low morale, you pressed on, riding out and rallying your troops personally. Victory followed. At Alesia 52 BCE. Your engineering genius built dual walls, one around Vercingetorix, inside another to guard you from relief armies. trapped between two enemies, your resolve, tactics, and leadership shattered Gallic unity. Your campaign gave rise to the famous telegram to Rome after swiftly defeating Pharnacus II at Zelawani. Witty wiki, I came, I saw, I conquered. Human frailties and omens behind the power. You suffered epileptic seizures, what Romans called falling sickness, collapsing in the field, fainting at times. Some viewed this as divine, others as cursed. You hid it when possible, but your vulnerability showed. You were deeply superstitious, paid attention to omens, rituals, sacrifices, consulted augurs constantly. When Calpurnia's dream foretelling blood on your statue came on March 14th, 44 BCE, you nearly cancelled the Senate visitant, till Decimus shamed your pride. Crossing the Rubicon and civil war, your crossing of the Rubicon in January 49 BCE wasn't just a battle move, it was defiant political theater. You'd defied the Senate's order to disband your armies and return as a private citizen. That moment birthed a civil war Rome pitted against itself. Your victory over Pompey at Pharsalus, chase to Egypt, alignment with Cleopatra was all part of a calculated game of power, where affection and strategy intertwined. The constitutional coup and road to assassination. You didn't seize power only by war, you built it via law. You took control of candidate nominations. You appointed your own loyal magistrates. You reshaped elections via tribunate and censorship. You held tribunician and veto powers, sacrosanct status, electoral control. All this crafted your version of governance while eroding the Senate's authority. It's why Senators Cassius, Brutus, and others felt betrayed, fearing you'd crown yourself Rex in name as well as power. Then let's open that next door. Let's walk into March 15th, 44 BCE, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. Not just what happened, but who was there, what they were thinking, and how everything unfolded with unbearable slowness. Dawn, the final morning, you wake early in your home on the Palatine Hill. The room is silent, but something feels wrong, not with the sky or the wind, but with the stillness. Calpurnia lies beside you, already awake. She looks pale. She tells you she's dreamt again of your statue, bleeding. She begs you not to go, and for a moment you agree, not because beer. You've never feared death, but you sense it. Something is stirring beneath the surface of the city. It's in the air, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. You send word. You will not attend the Senate session today, 8 a.m. The visit of Decimus Brutus. You sit in your garden. You sip watered wine. You listen to a lyre player nearby, distracted. And then Decimus Brutus arrives. He's not a loud man, not like Antony or Curio, but he's persuasive. You trust him. He was with you in Gaul. You even named him in your will. And now he's saying, you'll cause a scandal if you stay away. Bills say you're ruled by omens, that you fear the Senate. You frown. You can already hear the voices in your head. Caesar, too powerful to appear. Caesar, trembling before augurs. Caesar, no better than a king hiding in his palace. You nod. You change clothes. You order your litter to be prepared. Outside, at the gates, dozens of people try to intercept you petitioners, citizens. One even trying to hand you a warning scroll. It never reaches your hand. 9:30 a.m. En route to the theater of Pompey, you are carried down the winding roads of Rome, past statues of Jupiter, past the temple of Saturn, through the open markets. Your face is calm. You nod to citizens who cheer for you. Some call out your name, others look away. Your lictors carry the fasces before you, symbols of authority, of life and death. You are surrounded by honor, but not protection. The conspirators made sure you would travel lightly. Behind you, Mark Antony is walking fast. But just before he can join your procession, Trebonius intercepts him. A friendly conversation. Nothing suspicious, but it delays him exactly as planned. 10 a.m. The Senate gathers you. Arrive at the theater of Pompey. The theater is massive, grand, marble, usually full of voices echoing comedy and tragedy. Today it is quiet. The Curia Pompeiana, the chamber built at its base, has been repurposed for the Senate session. Inside they wait. Brutus, Cassius, Cinna, Casca, Decimus, Ligaris, Metellus, Trebonius, 60 men in all. Some pace, some breathe heavily, some sweat. All of them carry blades hidden in their togas. The statue of Pompey towers behind the seats, looming. 10:30 a.m. The entry you enter with a nod, calm, regal. You sit. A senator approaches Simper. He bows, asking you to pardon his exiled brother. You wave him off. He insists. You grow impatient. Suddenly, Casca is behind you. You don't hear the blade, just the wind of it. It catches your neck clumsy. Shallow. You rise from your seat in pain, in confusion. Another strikes you, Cassius, somewhere at your ribs. You turn. More men surround you. Blades flash in the lamplight. Tyrant. For the Republic. This is for Rome. You fight back briefly. You push Casca. You cry out, why? This peas violence. You look for a friend. Then you see Brutus. Your face freezes. You do not plead. You do not beg. You say only what may be a whisperette to Brute. Or maybe you say nothing. The sources conflict. But the moment is carved into pastry. You pull your toga over your head. You fall. They keep stabbing. 20-3 wounds. Pay of them. Only one to the chest is fatal. You die not screaming, but in silence. At the base of Pompey's statue, your enemy. 11 a.m. Aftermath room is still. Blood pools around your body. One conspirator, Cinna, slips and falls into it. His hands are red. Everyone's hands are red. And then they flee. They run from the chamber like schoolboys. Outside. The people wait. Someone says, it's done. Others say nothing. 1 p.m. Antony moves smart. Antony finds your body. He doesn't cry, not yet. But the rage rises. He takes your will, kept safe in the home of the Vestal Virgins. He reads it. You had left 75 denarii to every Roman citizen. You had left your gardens across the Tiber to the people. You had pardoned many of the very men who stabbed you. Antony carries your body into the forum. 4 p.m. The forum burns. Antony speaks, not with shouting, but with careful, furious words. He holds your bloodied cloak. He shows them the tears, the slashes. The crowd erupts. A pyre is built on the spot. Benches, clothing, tables, anything that will burn. Your body is set atop it. The flames rise. Someone throws in a crown. Others toss in weapons, flowers, curses. Rome becomes a furnace. The mob hunts the conspirators. That night, the stars are blurred by smoke. Your house is guarded. Your will is enforced. The Senate is paralyzed. The Republic is broken. Brutus and Cassius flee east. Antony rises for now, but not for long, because in the wings stands a boy, Gaius Octavius, your great-nephew, your legal heir, barely 19, and his rise will finish what you began. The story ends, and if you are still here and fully awake, then you are very patient or very interested in the story. If that's the case, please leave a like and subscribe so you can hear more from me, and because they will fire me if you don't. Now, I will leave the rest of you who have fallen asleep to rest with this fire effect. Enjoy and have a nice dreams.